Most people dream about having enough. Enough to pay the bills, maybe take a vacation, maybe not stress every time the car makes a new sound. But there's another kind of person, rare, curious, often misunderstood, who doesn't just want to be comfortable. They want to build something that lasts. Wealth that outlives them. Freedom that passes down like a family heirloom. If that's you, then what we're talking about isn't just money. It's a philosophy, a way of seeing the world that separates those who stay stuck from those who build legacies. Let's start with a truth that sounds simple, but breaks the cycle of scarcity the moment it lands. Money has a purpose, and it's not to sit still. Most of us were taught that the goal is to get a paycheck, pay the bills, and hope the leftovers grow into security someday. That's how society trains you to think, earn, spend, repeat. But wealth creation doesn't start with earning more. It starts with understanding what your cash is meant to do. Think of money as an employee. If all your employees are just sitting around in your checking account doing nothing, you don't have a business. You have a daycare. Wealthy people put their money to work. Poor people pay their money to survive. Middle-class people pay their money to look stable. But wealthy people design a system where every dollar earns its own paycheck. Picture your financial life like a house. Most people live in a fragile hut built on a shaky foundation: debt, paychecks, and stress. But a strong financial house begins with truth, understanding how money flows through your life. The first window of that house is your income. For most, that income comes from a job, trading hours for dollars. That's where most people stop thinking. They assume more hours, more money. But that mindset quietly builds a trap, because if your income depends only on your time, then your freedom is capped at no matter how skilled or hardworking you are, the clock owns you. You don't have a financial system, you are the system. Poor people obsess over bills because survival keeps them in motion. They're not lazy, they're exhausted. Every month becomes a game of which fire to put out first. Water bill or electricity, insurance or groceries, it's not a lack of intelligence, it's a lack of breathing room. When survival runs the show, wealth never gets invited to the conversation. Middle-class people climb out of that cycle but into another one, the illusion of control. They pay bills on time, keep their credit score healthy, maybe even buy a home, but their security depends on a steady paycheck and a good reputation with the bank. They trade time for comfort, not for freedom. They tell themselves, if I can just earn more, I'll finally feel safe. But that's the lie that keeps the wheel spinning. A higher salary feels good until your lifestyle grows to match it. The numbers change, the pattern doesn't. Now the wealthy, the truly wealthy, think in windows, not walls. They don't just look at income, they look at income-producing assets. They use their money to create more doors that lead back to them. Each door is an asset, a book, a course, a rental property, a business, a system that produces value even when they sleep. At first, those assets seem useless. They take time, they make nothing, but then something subtle happens. They begin to pay you back. A trickle turns into a stream, then into a river that flows without asking for your permission or your presence. That's when the game changes. Because the goal isn't to stop working, it's to stop working for money. You start working with money. You and your capital become partners in creation, and that partnership, once it compounds, feels unstoppable. Imagine writing a single book that earns you money every month for the rest of your life. Imagine building a product, a course, a channel, something that exists once but serves forever. That's not luck, that's architecture. It's the difference between spending your life digging wells and spending it designing pipelines. Wells run dry. Pipelines keep flowing long after you've moved on. When most people talk about wealth, they talk about saving. Saving is safe. It feels productive. It feels responsible. But saving alone doesn't make you rich. It just makes you tired with a slightly larger cushion. Cash accumulation is the illusion most people live in. You collect money, store it, and feel good seeing the numbers rise. But what you're really building is a stagnant pool. It looks full, but nothing moves inside. And what doesn't move dies. Real wealth is cash flow, movement, circulation. Just like a body of water, your money has to flow to stay alive. There's a reason why nothing grows in the Dead Sea. It has inlets, but no outlets. Water flows in, but it never leaves. It sits, evaporates, and becomes salt, too thick for life to thrive. Your money works the same way. If it only flows in from your job, from your clients, from your paycheck, but never flows out through something productive, it becomes toxic. It loses purpose, it loses power, and it starts to rot in place. Now, compare that to the Sea of Galilee. It has both an inlet and an outlet. Water flows through it, fish thrive, life happens. Cash flow is the Sea of Galilee. It keeps moving, it feeds others, it multiplies, and in that movement, it keeps you alive too. That's why rich people prefer consistent cash flow over large cash piles. Because flow creates freedom, accumulation creates anxiety. You can't sleep peacefully when you know your so-called safety is being eaten away by inflation. A flowing system doesn't care about inflation, it just keeps producing. It doesn't worry about time, it outlives you. Now imagine this. Your bills are paid every month, not by your job, but by your assets. A book you wrote years ago, a product you designed, a video that keeps earning ad revenue, a rental property, a dividend, a royalty, money that comes in not because you showed up today, but because you showed up years ago. That's what wealthy people mean when they talk about income-producing assets. They're not bragging about investments, they're describing their freedom machines. It starts slow. At first, your effort feels invisible. You work for weeks or months with nothing to show. That's why most people quit. They want immediate results in a long-term game. They trade the future for the feeling of progress today. But delayed gratification isn't just about patience, it's about direction. You're building a pipeline, not a paycheck. A pipeline that keeps pouring into your life even when you're no longer there to turn the valve. This is why wealth has less to do with money and more to do with philosophy. It's spiritual before it's financial. The principle is the same in nature. Plant a seed, care for it, and let it bear fruit long after you've forgotten where you buried it. A tree doesn't rush, it just grows. When you treat your money like a seed instead of a souvenir, you begin to understand wealth.
You plan assets instead of buying distractions. You focus on things that can multiply, not just decorate your life. That's why truly wealthy people rarely look rich. They don't spend to look successful, they invest to become unbothered. They aren't chasing attention, they're building systems. While others show their money, they're growing their freedom. And when that system works, something magical happens. Your money starts working harder than you do. It keeps flowing while you rest, while you think, while you dream. It builds new streams even while you sleep. This is when you cross from survival into wealth, not when you make more, but when your money never stops moving. In the next part, we'll talk about cash perpetuation, how to make wealth last for generations, why saving isn't safety, and how to build systems that keep flowing long after you're gone.
Eventually, everyone faces the same question. How do you make money that keeps flowing when you're no longer here to guide it? That's the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Rich people make money. Wealthy people build systems that make money without them. Generational wealth isn't about a big bank account. It's about designing cash flow that outlives you, because money fades, but structure endures. And the structure you leave behind determines whether your children inherit freedom or a financial mess dressed as opportunity. Think about every family that built a fortune only to lose it within 2 generations. It wasn't because the money disappeared. It's because the system that produced it wasn't passed down. They left behind treasure, not training. And treasure without wisdom turns to dust. True wealth is built on cash perpetuation. That means your cash flow keeps flowing even after you stop. Maybe it's royalties from a book, returns from a business, dividends from investments, or life insurance that replaces the income you once generated. Whatever the form, it must feed the system long after you're gone. Life insurance, when designed intelligently, isn't morbid. It's an act of care. It buys your family time to heal, to breathe, to make choices from calm rather than panic. Because grief is heavy and work is cold. Money can't replace love, but it can protect the space love needs to survive. You insure your car because you know it can crash. You insure your house because you know it can burn. But you are the most irreplaceable asset your family will ever have. If you vanish, what happens to their stability, their plans, their future? Wealthy families understand this. They treat insurance not as a burden, but as a bridge that connects one generation's effort to the next generation's possibility. But money alone won't secure your legacy. You have to raise children who understand money, who see it as a tool, not a trophy, because if they don't know how to build, they'll only know how to spend. If they don't understand how to grow value, they'll only know how to consume it. That's why teaching financial literacy is more powerful than any inheritance. When you teach the next generation how to think like builders, they don't need to cling to your success. They continue it. They evolve it. Generational wealth is a conversation, not a transaction. It's built in the way you talk about money at dinner, in the way you handle fear during a crisis, in the way you demonstrate restraint when everyone else is chasing noise. Wealth is calm, it's quiet, it's slow and consistent and kind of boring. That's why most people miss it. They think it's hidden behind yachts and logos and big houses. But the truth is simpler. Wealth is your ability to create value for someone other than yourself, again and again, without needing to be there every time it happens. That's the real financial freedom, not the zeros in your account, but the peace in your mind. Not the luxury you own, but the time you control. Not the applause you get, but the legacy you leave. So here's the path. Step 1, build income-producing assets. Step 2, convert that flow into systems that keep producing without you. Step 3, teach the next generation how to think, not just how to earn. Wealth isn't something you stumble into. It's something you train yourself to understand. And once you do, you realize it was never about money. It was about mastery. Stay focused, keep building, and let your future self and your family thank you for what you start today.